You're feeling sad and empty, so it's time for a new financial mistake on wheels. You've just finished wasting your life away watching all 11 stages of Initial D, hours and hours of your favourite nonchalant racing driver embarrassing his competition, all while driving a painfully slow car. Everyone loves an underdog story, and what better way to convince yourself that you don't need to spend your life savings on a fast car than telling yourself a slow one is better. Takumi became the best without power. All he needed was an unattainable level of skill, which of course, you have too. But there's a problem. It appears that you weren't the only person with a lust to drive a slow car fast, and Takumi's choice, the AE86, has succumbed to so much cool tax, you'll be paying RX-7 prices for a Corolla. But fear not, there's another option. And if your ego is fragile, you don't necessarily have to become a hairdresser in the process. Successor to the AE86, the GT86 was essentially the same formula, but modernised. Lightweight, low power, rear-wheel drive with a focus on a recipe of handling alongside simplicity. Carrying the 86 name is a huge honour. The original AE86 is a legendary car, and contrary to popular belief, isn't just cool because of Initial D. The AE86 was actually a pretty successful car in racing, winning the British Touring Car Championship twice. It had its own racing leagues, competed in rally, and was famously known for being essentially responsible for the creation of drifting itself. Keiichi Tsuchiya, also known as the Drift King, was famous for owning an AE86, honing his driving skills on the mountain roads of Japan. He wasn't a professional driver, just a guy who loved his driving. But Keiichi began to build a reputation within the street racing world of Japan as an unbeatable driver. If this story sounds familiar, it may be because Initial D was actually loosely based on Keiichi's story, with Takumi taking the place of Keiichi. Keiichi's skills bagged him a sponsorship in professional racing, and he was just as good on track as he was on the street. So good that he resorted to drifting his AE86 around the track just to give the competition a chance and keep the racing interesting. With drifting being a suboptimal way to get around the track fast, this kept the racing a little tighter. With a live rear axle and 50-50 weight distribution, the AE86 was prone to rotating under braking and deceleration. This meant drifting was sometimes inevitable, but Keiichi took this to another level. This was the birthing of what we now know as drifting, and racing fans worldwide loved it. Oversteer was no longer just a handling characteristic of rear-wheel drive cars, but a sport and an art form, a skill to sharpen as a display of perfect car control. Rarely the fastest way around a corner, but definitely the most exciting, and a tremendous display of skill. Now that Keiichi had a name for himself on the street and on the racetrack, he released a short film with help of his sponsor under the name Plusby, which I highly doubt I've pronounced correctly. This film was very artistic in nature and spawned all of the media we consume now based on drifting. So the A86 was a little more than just an economy car, hyped up by a fictional anime. In 2012, Toyota teamed up with Subaru to build the GT86, successor of the AE86, also sold under Subaru's name as the BRZ. Subaru took care of the engine with a 2-litre naturally aspirated boxer engine, a famously Subaru engine layout designed to keep the centre of gravity low and the head gaskets exploding. This was a fairly contentious choice. The Subaru don't quite have the bulletproof reputation that Toyota have for engine reliability, but Toyota deemed the engine worthy regardless. Despite this, the 2-litre FA20 seemed to be well behaved as long as it was serviced properly and given mechanical sympathy. As an owner of a WRX STI myself, I've never experienced any issues after many years and miles of hard driving. But before you get your pitchforks out, that argument's for another video. Subaru also co-developed the chassis, adding a touch of rally expertise while Toyota helped with their tried and tested rear-wheel drive knowledge. The result was an incredibly refreshing car, focused on the art of driving itself, just like the A86. Upon release, the GT86 became famous for its overly skinny tyres, a deliberate choice made by Toyota to make the car easily break traction and to do it predictably, just like its older brother. With just short of 200 horsepower, the GT86 was never fast, but focused on pure driving fun, and required a level of skill to drive well. This is something we as drivers love, and it would be the first production car to ever be marketed with drifting as a focal point. With a huge aftermarket support, you can turn these cars into anything your heart desires. Boost them, track them, drift them, stance them, do as you please. The car also ditched the old rear live axle for double wishbone suspension, making it dance with fine precision. The GT86 was a blank canvas for modification, but I personally believe best enjoyed near stock. I say near because you can't talk about the GT86 without mentioning its Achilles heel, the torque dip. The GT86 had a fairly noticeable torque dip in the mid-range. Some people say it's awful, and some people don't even notice. More importantly, with a tune and a manifold, the torque dip issue can be almost entirely resolved, but it's worth keeping in mind if you're thinking about buying one. Of course, another easy solution for that torque dip is boost. A turbo or supercharger will solve this problem entirely. Many people go this route, but it won't come cheap. The third and most recent generation of the 86, the GR86, is also definitely worthy of mention. This car had an excellent reception upon release, for taking the same formula and improving it again. These have unfortunately suffered due to an engine assembly issue. Too much silicon was used, which can break up into the engine, clogging the oil pickups and causing the engine to drop oil pressure and blow up. Not at all very helpful for my argument in support of Subaru engines, I know. All jokes aside, the GT86 is an excellent car for lovers of just driving. There's a lot of truth in the statement that it's better to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow, and the GT86 is the perfect teacher for someone looking to improve their skills and become the next Keiichi Tsuchiya, all at an affordable price tag. It offers many of the parts we love about the MX-5 and Miata, but in a slightly more practical package with more creature comforts. A great daily driver for an enthusiast who doesn't need much space. With many examples being stanced and poorly modified, we can sometimes forget how brilliant of a car the GT86 really is.